The sky above the valley was the color of parchment. Ella arrived at the foot of the tower just as the first shadow of morning stretched across its ink-stained stones. It rose into the sky like a brushstroke, tall, narrow, impossibly old. No windows. No flag. Only a single door, made of polished wood darkened by time. There was no guard. No guide. Just a brass plaque beside the entrance. To enter, leave behind the story you are trying to write. Ella paused. She had always been writing, on scraps and margins, in the hollow space behind her ribs. She carried stories like others carried keys or wounds. Now she opened her notebook, tore out the last page, folded it once, then slipped it into a slot beneath the plaque. The door opened. The air inside smelled of ink and memory. Dim light spilled down a spiral staircase that wound upward into shadow. Along the walls were marks, not letters but trails, swirls, dots. Some glowed faintly, some moved when she blinked. Ella climbed. The first level was called the Room of Forgotten Lines. Thousands of sentences hovered in the air, suspended like dust motes. They came from journals never finished, poems torn in half, novels abandoned after 3 chapters. Ella walked among them, reading aloud. She waited by the window long after the storm passed. There was something about the way he closed the door, softly as if it mattered. The apple wasn't poisoned. It was just misunderstood. Each line vibrated when spoken, then gently vanished. She climbed to the second level, the Hall of Ink. Here, vats of black and indigo shimmered beneath silver domes. Quills, broken pens, calligraphy brushes floated above them, still wet. The walls were etched with languages both known and forgotten. One wall breathed. When she touched it, it whispered her name, not in sound, but in script. The letters curled around her fingertips. Her name became a verb. She wrote. To Ella, to wander without fear of erasure. On the third level, the ceiling vanished. It was a garden of parchment. Leaves shaped like torn pages. Trees with bark that peeled in lines of verse. Flowers bloomed with haiku. A breeze passed through, scattering dialogue like petals. Do you remember? I never forgot. Then why did you leave? Ella sat by a fountain made of open books. Water spilled gently across pages that never smudged. She cupped some in her hands. Drank. It tasted like a story her grandmother once told her by candlelight. A story she hadn't remembered until this moment. She cried. On the fourth level, she entered a chamber of echoes. The walls spoke in voices. Some hers. Some not. Stories she had told. Stories told about her. Stories never spoken aloud. One voice said. She tried to be silent, but her silence was a scream. Another said. She loved with all her commas, but he only spoke in full stops. Ella stayed until the echoes softened. She wrote. This tower does not contain stories. It contains the spaces between them. Fifth level, the Room of Unwritten Ends. Each pedestal held a book with a blank final page. Ella opened one. The city was burning when they arrived, but she turned the page. Empty. Another. They danced beneath the moons of 2 worlds, knowing. Empty. She opened a third, and the blank page began to fill. Her hand trembled. The words were hers. Not remembered, not written, but known. She whispered. This is how stories find you, when you stop chasing and start listening. At the 6th level, she met the librarian. A tall figure cloaked in ink-colored robes. No face, only a flicker of light where eyes might be. The librarian bowed. Have you come to write or to remember? Ella didn't answer. She was handed a scroll, blank, a brush, wet with ink, and pointed toward a narrow corridor. She walked alone. The hallway pulsed with old magic. Symbols along the walls glowed with her footsteps. Words formed in the air. Begin with truth. Shape with courage. End with breath. She Saturday wrote. Not for anyone, not for a book, but for the echo within her that had waited. She wrote of love that never asked, of endings that made beginnings possible, of fear that folded into strength, of a girl who wandered into a tower and left herself behind, only to find her voice on every floor. When she stood, the scroll rolled itself closed. The librarian took it, bowed again. A door opened. She stepped out, not at the base of the tower, but at its peak. The world below shimmered, fields of pages, forests of verse, rivers of ink. She whispered, "Thank you for letting me be writ." And somewhere far below, a new story began to bloom.